Only.
So, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining this session. This is the second session of the Hyderabad Bird Atlas training program. It is about introduction to birds and bird watching by Sriram Reddy. Before we delve into this session, I would like to let you know that the Zoom has got some features for asking queries as Q&A on the bottom. If you have any queries, Kishore and I are panelists at the moment. Anita will be joining soon as a panelist. And if you have any questions while Sriram is making his presentation, you may please type in your questions and then we will attempt to answer that. After about 5, 6 birds or slides or descriptions, if you still have further questions on the same topic, we can raise them to Sriram to have it publicly addressed. And towards the end of the session, we will have all questions answered together, or maybe you can have one-to-one discussions in the Zoom meeting or outside the Zoom meeting as well. So I would also like to introduce Sriram Reddy. I'm sure very many of you already know him. He's one of India's most prestigious photographers, and then we are lucky to have him for the Hyderabad Bird Atlas. And in Telangana, Sriram Reddy has documented about 422 species, which is the highest at the moment. And then he's traveled extensively all over the state to understand and study birds, photograph them, document them, and the number of birds which we see today is a marvelous effort which is presented by Sriram Reddy. So I invite Sriram to start the session on the introduction to birds and bird watching for the Hyderabad Bird Atlas program. Over to Sriram Reddy.
Hey, thank you, Gopal. Okay, I think as Gopal mentioned, this is second session. So in the first session, we talked about Atlas, what is the importance of Bird Atlas, and what exactly we're going to do in Hyderabad Bird Atlas. So as part of Hyderabad Bird Atlas, we planned a series of trainings. Okay, as part of these trainings, even though there is a second session for birds, introduction to birds, this is the first session. So where remember that these all the first four sessions related to birds are planned for beginners. Okay, planned for beginners. If somebody, an expert or an advanced or a medium bird watcher wants some kind of training, you can actually request us. We'll address them after we are done with the basics of training. I think you all know that we shared one link with you where you can actually share your questions with us, where you can ask for questions. Let's say you wanted some advanced sessions on birds. It could be wetland birds or woodland birds, whatever you wanted to know. You can put it in the Q&A session, which Excel sheet which was shared a few days back with you. And then we'll try to come up with a training sessions for advanced bird watchers also. But whatever sessions which subsequent sessions, first four sessions is for beginners. So keep this in mind because the skill level for first four sessions is for beginners and people who started their bird watching journey. So that is what we are going to do today. We're going to talk about birds and bird watching, and many people know, right, how birds are useful for us in the wild. So many birds they disperse seeds. Some actually pollinate and make things, and many other birds like Indian roller are help in controlling the pests. So we'll explore some of the commonly seen birds in Hyderabad, especially in Hyderabad. We selected all the birds which are very common in Hyderabad and trying to present those in the subsequent tests. Okay, for people who are starting their bird watching experience, right? What do you need? Okay, to be precise, all you need was a pen and a paper is what it is. If you're good in sketching, many old time bird watchers they use sketches as one's way of describing a bird. If you have a pen and a paper or a pencil, you can describe the bird in what you're seeing. is what is one of the things. If you have, if you can afford a binoculars, you can use binoculars for bird watching, and also camera. If you can able to take pictures, you can use a camera for that. So these are some of the ways you can document birds. And okay, this I think if somebody been to yesterday's session or today's session, when and KBR are in today's zoo, so any bird watching session, right? These are some of the five questions we need to ask for any new bird which you're going to see. We call it five W's of bird identification. So this is very important to identify birds. So ask yourself these five questions and try to find answers by yourself. That way you can narrow it down and identify the bird successfully. So this is very important. Practically, once you attend some of those practical sessions, you will keep these five questions in mind and try to identify these five questions. We need to ask ourselves. Let's say that you see a new bird. In this case, I'm showing a bird on the right side. So what size was the bird is the first question you need to answer. And you have to always compare the bird which you are seeing with the bird you already know. Okay. So let's say in this case, since in this picture you can't replicate the actual size, I am saying this is bigger than that. His size is what you need to approximate with the size you already know. Let's for this entire session, we'll compare four sizes. One is a sparrow, myna, crow and duck is what we are going to compare with all the birds. Okay. I hope you all know the size of a sparrow, myna, crow and a duck. Keep that in mind. And what colors is this bird? Next is once you identify the size correctly, you need to get the as many features of the bird. When you look at the bird, what are the primary colors you're going able to see? Okay, in this case, you can see black and white wings, orangish beak and orangish face, pink legs, some of the things how you can define this bird. Okay, the third is what the bird is doing. It is the third point is the most important point where you are actually observing the bird behavior. In this case, what the bird is doing. In this case, if you can see, this bird is feeding on a side of a water body where it got the fish and it is feeding on that. So these are the things. The third is the most important thing because the behavior of the bird and you learn more about the bird by observing the bird for a very long period. Some birds, as every bird has a distinct behavior. If you observe, spend time with the bird, you get to know more about that, and that helps you to identify and narrow down the species. So keep this in mind, size, features, and the third is what the bird is, behavior of the bird. Fourth is where you have seen the bird, like it's a habitat of the bird, whether you have seen it near a wetland, whether you have seen in a park, whether you have seen in a desert or a grassland, whatever, wherever it is, whether you have seen the bird on the ground or is it in the middle level or on the top floor. So if you observe, right, it becomes because every bird, some birds are always on the ground, some birds will be on the middle layer, some birds will be always on the top of the tree. So these things you try to get. And also whether you see near a water body or not, inside the water or outside the water, inside, that will help you to identify. Okay. And then the last one is where, when did you see the bird? It means that seasonality. Sometimes in the winter, we get a lot of wintering birds. So it helps us to narrow down. If you have seen a bird sometime in April or May, are different from the birds you see in January or February, winter and summer, we can narrow it down. So these are the five things you need to ask whatever bird you're going to see. If you can able to answer these questions, it becomes easy to identify the bird. Okay, as keep this in mind whenever you see a bird, try to ask these five questions with you and then answer. Okay, the answers can be found out through other bird watchers or apps which help you to identify. That we'll see. This is actually a painter stock feeding on a fish. Okay, and it's much bigger than duck. If you have seen, somebody knows the painter stock, it's much bigger than a duck. And you see the black and white legs, wings and everything. That's how we identify this bird. Okay, now how do you describe this bird? Okay, I think as we mentioned in the previous sessions, also in the practical session, we asked all the participants to download Merlin app. So the Merlin also asks the same questions. So if you can able to answer those five questions what we showed, it will narrow down and show you the bird. Similarly, you also answer, then it will help you to identify. Okay, I strongly suggest the beginners to download Merlin app to identify. And also, how do you describe? So if you can see from top to bottom, right? Try to see as many details as you can in the bird. That way you can see like the way it is walking, the way it is sounding, what call the bird is making. If you're able to record the call, record it. Okay, see the shape of the bird, bill. Bill shape also defines what it's going, what it is eating. So don't ignore the minute of things what you are observing. So just try to see what is the color of the eye. Sometimes, let's say in owls, right? The color of the owls, most of the owls are could be black, could be yellowish, could be reddish. Okay, once you ask this, able to note the color of the eye, it also narrows down the bird. Okay, okay, to note the bird, right? Some of the names you need to be known. Okay, some at least like let's say you have seen a bird. How do you describe it to some person who don't know? So you need to know some names. Let's say in this case, the crown, head, nape, throat. Some of the parts of the bird is needed to actually describe it. For describing, try to remember some of the names because I'll be using some of them. Let's say. Rump is one part, right? And vent is one more part. So some of the names of the birds are after some of the features of the bird. So try to remember some of the things because I'll be using those names in the birds which I'm going to show. So where do you see birds? As I mentioned previously, you can see birds everywhere. Okay, in this case, this is a picture taken at Aminpur, where flamingos used to be in good numbers. Now you don't see flamingos right now in Aminpur. Hopefully, we're going to see in future. In any wetland you visit, you're going to see birds and parks. Any park you visit in Hyderabad, you're going to see birds. Today we are seeing in KBR. Yesterday we seen in KBR. Today we saw in zoo. Okay, in even on urban areas, wherever if you just see from your balcony, you can see birds. So urban areas is also where you can see. If you go to visit a forest, this is clicked in Anandagiri. In even Anandagiri has some exotic species of bird where you can see. Okay, even in grasslands and shrublands, you're going to see some birds are exclusively reserved. I mean, you see them only in grasslands. So if somebody wants to see that bird, you need to go and visit the habitat. So remember, any habitats, you're going to see birds. Okay, how do you start? Let's say for a beginner, right? You always need to start with the family. You don't need to go deep into what kingfisher it is. If you can identify that it's a kingfisher, that is 50% problem is solved with the family if you know. And I think when we started this HBA group, I think I asked some of the families, I think more than 50, 60% could able to identify what I'm showing it now. So that is more than enough. If you look at a shill out of a bird, because most of the time when you see a bird into the sky, right, you see only the silhouette of the bird. So if you could able to identify looking at the shape of the bird, saying that this is a beater or an eagle or an owl or a swallow or a franklin, right? So half of the problems are solved. So always start with the family and try to identify by looking into that. So some of the families which are there, crows, okay, there are multiple types of crows. If you can able to see a bird and identify it is a crow, that's half battle won. Okay, pigeons and doves are clubbed together. Okay, kingfishers. So kingfishers also, if you are able to see the bird and say it's a kingfisher, that is more than enough for the beginners. If you're able to identify the family, that's as I mentioned, it's half of the problem is solved. Ducks, bee-eaters, kites, owls, how they most of the birds in that family, the shape is almost similar. Try to get that shape without looking into the details. So if you can able to identify, it's good. Okay. Now, when it comes to Hyderabad, as I mentioned, right, Hyderabad, as we are planning to do Hyderabad Bird Atlas in February. So till now, in eBird, in eBird, 275 species has been documented from Hyderabad. So these 275 species, if you categorize them based on the habitat, so wetland species are approximately 80 plus. Non-specialized birds are the birds which can be in any habitat. It could be in a wetland, it could be in any place, even in urban lands, you might see in non-specialized birds. They are not dependent on any specific habitat. So 82 species are non-specialized birds, which today's session is mostly dedicated for non-specialized birds. And next session, we are going to concentrate on forest plantation and forest birds, which is taken by Gopal. After that, we are going to address wetland birds by Anita. Anita is going to take care of the wetland birds. And then we cover the remaining species of grassland, open habitat, and shrubland in another sessions. 4 sessions, we're going to cover 4 types of habitat. Today's session is completely about non-specialized, also called as generalized birds. So we're going to see those generalized birds, what are they? And also if you split those 275 species by diet, because diet is very important. So looking at the diet, you can figure out where they're going to be seen in the, let's say, a seed and plant and seed bird. Okay, you will always see around open habitats, may wherever there is grass availability and those things, you will see them, and also agriculture fields and everywhere. So it's important to understand the diet also. So today, when you see it, right, you'll understand why what we are talking about. So okay, now when we go through, as I mentioned, this entire session, I'm going to introduce 20 or 30 species of general birds, but this present day has almost like 80 species of general birds which you're going to see, but we concentrate on 15-20 species, and then we'll quickly go through the other ones because the process is same. Like 5 Ws, we need to ask yourself 5 questions. In this case, I mentioned, right, 5 sizes. First is a sparrow, next is myna, crow, and duck. These are the birds we relate the size with these 4 birds. Okay, as I mentioned, we'll go. Okay, now we'll start with the rock pigeon. Okay, rock pigeon is the most frequent everywhere in the city. If you go, you see a rock pigeon. As I mentioned, 5 Ws is what we're going to concentrate. First, we need to identify what is the size of the bird. So, as we mentioned, myna and crow. In between myna and crow, the size of a rock pigeon is where it is situated. It is bigger than myna, smaller than crow. Is where 33 centimeters. What, whether it is a resident or not. This is one of the question we have said. We have 2 types. Okay, my resident bird, migratory bird, and again in the migratory, sometimes there is summer migrant and also winter migrant. So this bird is a resident bird. It means that it can be seen throughout the year. And what it eats, diet, plant and seed. So if you can, and the behavior, last one, what you're seeing, right? Where do you see? Usually you see them in open area, sitting there, rocky cliffs. Actual rock pigeon, the name came because if most of the pigeons, what we see inside are feral pigeons, because they are actually once upon a time they're domesticated and released into the wild. That's the reason. But if somebody wants to see an actual rock pigeon, you need to go its habitat, which is actually big cliffs and the rocky cliffs which are in the wild. So there are the actual wild rock pigeons, which are slightly becoming difficult, but you can still see them. The rock pigeons is what you need to see. So remember these 5 steps: size, where you have seen, okay, and whether it is a resident bird or migratory bird. Okay, what are the features of the bird in this case, right? You can ignore rock pigeon. Rock pigeon comes in multiple colors, but we'll also see the next subsequent pictures where you can see. Okay, next is common myna, another commonest bird which you're going to see. Size of a myna in this case, if somebody is seeing this bird, you need to see. First is we identified the size, minus size. Next is what are the features of the bird. If you look into this bird, what colors you can see? You can see that it's black head, okay, yellow beak, yellowish orange beak, and you see the color of the eye. If you can see the color of the eye, right? It has very dynamic eye. That is one thing. Yellow legs. How you define a brownish belly, okay, and throat is black in color. Some of the things you need to note of this bird if you don't know the name of the bird. And what it eats multiple stuff. So omnivorous bird this is. So it means it eats even insects and also the plant and seeds. Okay. And where you can see, you might have heard this call everywhere. Common myna is the most uh, commonly called, and it is seen mimicking other birds in the urban areas. So mostly seen in urban habitats, also in the parks, wherever you see. That's the reason I told you, right? Mostly habitat is non-specialized. You can see in multiple habitats. Okay, now house crow, size of a crow. So in this case, you observe there are multiple crows as we mentioned. This is a house crow. How do you differentiate house crows from other crows? You need to see how the features are. If you have seen a crow, if you have this crow has other color apart from black, it is the grayish color. If you have seen a grayish color crow, that is house crow. But we have other crows called large bill crow or also called jungle crow, which is completely dark in color, bigger than this, and the beak is much thicker than this. You need to see more details to identify. If you can able to identify it as a crow, it is wonderful. Then if you want to see what crow it is, then you need to note some of the features of the body and try to reach to that. So okay, now we'll come to some sexually dimorphic species. Sexually dimorphic species are where male and female look different. Okay, many species in birds, male and female look different. Is house sparrow is one example where male is slightly colorful than female. So house sparrow is again size of a sparrow in this case, and then it primarily feeds on plant and seed. If you have seen house sparrows, right now the numbers are drastic, I mean reduced in the our apartment areas. But if you go slightly away from cities, you can still see them. And also you might see them in your apartments, and some of the windows they made their own nest, and in your parking lots you might see them breeding in that places. But if you go to the village areas, you see them in extremely good numbers. And because they're plant and seed birds, you will see in areas where the seeds are available. Okay, you want to see this bird, you can visit any village. I probably in the city also you'll see them in good numbers, not like in villages. Okay, now somebody, if you look into this bird, right, without going into the name, let's see what is the size of the bird. This bird is slightly bigger than sparrow. Okay, but if you look into the features, right, the black crown is very known. Okay, brown color body is overall, but there is an interesting color which is there in the body. If you could able to find that, if you could able to see that in the wild, okay, let's say in this case the red color on the vent is the primary feature. If somebody who don't know this bird, if you can able to say that on the vent or on the bum region, if you say that I have seen a red color, so it becomes easy to identify this bird. And the name of the bird also is related to the same unique feature, which is called red-vented bilbul. Okay. So again, this bird you usually see in pairs. So again, birds come, some birds are always single, some birds always in couple, or some birds is always in bigger flocks. So that is also very important when you're observing. Try to see whether the bird is alone or in a group or like a couple. So bulbuls usually you see them in couples usually. Okay, and you might be seeing them vocal also. You see them always calling, frequently seen. And any urban areas you go, you see red-vented bulbul. Okay. Any you want to anybody has questions, Gopal, or we'll continue to the next series of any questions you have till now? You can chat,
You
type in the chat.
you can go ahead, Sriram. We are answering the smaller questions here.
Okay, fine. Okay, now again another sexually dimorphic. It's called parakeet. Actually, we have three types of parakeet in Telangana. This is the most common bird. Okay, called the rose-ring parakeet. Remember that all birds' name are named after the male. In this case, rose ring. When you see a bird as the size of a parakeet, the size is important. Again, it's slightly bigger than, slightly smaller than crow is what I can imagine in the field. And you always see them in large flocks. You usually see them, and wherever they always make noise in the field. Okay, and male has the rose ring, whereas the female lacks a rose ring. If somebody wants to differentiate rose parakeets, okay, male and female, this is one of the features where you can distinguish male and female. And these are fruit and nectar birds, where they actually you see them eating fruits and nectar. Okay, remember this. Whatever diet we are mentioning here, it's the primary diet of that species. Okay, you might see they're eating something else, but in this case, their primary diet is fruit and nectar, what they are going to eat. Okay, and you might have seen them foraging in nests, and wherever you see old trees where there are holes, you see parakeets, mynas, all these birds. They are always seen in that. Okay, another commonly seen, especially in the middle of the cities, is this bird where you see them circling in the middle of the city. Okay, especially around the dump yards. If any dump yards are in the city, you might have seen, and most of you guys might be thinking that this is an eagle, but they're actually called black kites. Black kites can be easily identified in flight if you see a fork tail, any bird of the size of a duck, where if it has a fork tail, so and it is making circles with a small glide, right? Most of the time they'll be gliding. So, and if it has a fork tail, black in color, it is mostly blackheads, especially seen around human habitats. If you go away from the city, their numbers are not so great when compared with inside the city. So, and you know, right, they are actually one of the, even though they are part of raptors, they hardly hunt, they scavenge on some most of the food, whatever is available on the dump yards. Okay, this probably all of you can know that again, but there is a clear distinction between male and female. Females, you know, right? Male can has a blue throat, blue entire neck, whereas the female has greenish and other stuff. Okay, bigger than duck. And especially always you see them on the ground, unless in the mornings whenever you see them, they always be sitting on top. Okay, most of the time to avoid predators is one thing, and other thing is if at all, if it is raining, they always sit on top to make themselves dry. So this is always when you see early morning, you always see them sitting on top of a tower or somewhere, just to avoid predators. Okay, another one which is widespread across all habitats, any habitat you pick up, you see this kingfisher, um, easily identified by the throat, bigger than any other kingfishers, whatever. The common three kingfishers what we see in the Telangana are white-throated, what you're seeing. The other one is small kingfisher, and then we have common kingfisher is one, and the other one is pied kingfisher. Out of these three, this is the biggest of these three. We have other kingfishers also, but we'll concentrate on these three kingfishers. But this kingfisher is not dependent on any habitat. You might see this kingfisher anywhere in any habitat also, whether it's you are in a park or in a forest or in the driest place. If you are going in a car, you will be sitting on the wire, because it eats all kinds of prey. Okay, we feel that kingfisher, they only primarily feed on fishes, right? But this kingfisher eats whatever is available. It eats from snakes to scorpions to small chicks also it eats. All kinds of documentation of this kingfisher eating everything is there. This is just exactly the size of a myna. So remember, always go with the flow. 5 questions. What is the size of this king? What is the size of this bird? How do you define this bird? It has red beak, darkish eyes, brownish head, blue wings, and then to narrow it down, you have whether it has a white throat or not. What is the size when compared with other kingfishers? All kingfishers has the same thick bill. You can compare with the other kingfishers. They have the similar size of bill. Concentrate on all these features. Okay. Okay, this is very interesting bird. Again, most frequently seen. You see them in large flocks. Sometimes you will see them alone. And if somebody observes this bird, you can able to describe it. It's actually slightly bigger than sparrow, smaller than myna. And if when you see it in the field, okay, what you can observe is completely greenish in color. Sometimes you see a orangish head. In some features, you will have an orangish feature. And usually when you observe, it sits on an open perch, dives whenever it waits for some time. Okay, if it looks into the prey, it flies, catches the prey, and comes back onto the same perch, sits on that perch, and starts feeding. This is the behavior of this bird called Asian green beater. Okay, beaters, all beaters have the same behavior. Catches some bees or butterflies or dragonflies, comes back to the same place, and before it swallows, it hits that bee or a butterfly against that, if whether it is a perch, whether it is a wooden perch or a wire, it hits it to actually kill it and also remove whatever, if in this case the bees, right? Bees have a sting. So to remove the sting, it will hit it to make it safe to swallow. So this is a behavior. If you able to describe this behavior, it becomes easy to identify this bird. This bird is called Asian green beater. It's a resident bird. During winters, we get a similar looking bird, which is much bigger than this, called blue-tail beaters. Okay, this is a migratory bird. Looks same like that. Behavior is also same and everything, but it's a blue-tail beater bigger than this. So remember that. Okay, you might see the same bird in the same. And it's an insectivorous bird. So always you see them busy catching insects and okay. Now another common bird called there's a size slightly bigger than sparrow, and male and female completely looks different. Male is black in color, whereas female is rufous or brown in color. Important thing to note was, can you see this on the exactly on the vent area? You see a brownish color. So this is an important feature to narrow down this bird. Black, and if you on the vent, if you see a brownish color or rufous color, it is the feature to identify this bird called Indian robin. So very vocal bird. You see them always. The tail is up whenever it calls. The tail it cocks up. It's usually seen in all kinds of even in human habitations. You'll see this bird again. Another insectivorous bird. Busy. You see them busy catching, and it always sits in open. Sometimes most of the time you see them in open places also. Okay, this babbler, this bird, usually mostly mistaken bird, but you see them a very highly noisy bird. They're always in groups. When you see, you'll never, very rarely you see them a single bird. Always in bigger groups. It's also called seven sisters because they are always babblers are always in groups, and is the size of a myna, and most frequently seen babbler in our region. Okay, called yellow-bill babbler. This can be easily mistaken for jungle babbler. Jungle babbler also looks the same, but you can easily distinguish from jungle babbler by the pale head. You see the head, it has more whitish when compared with the other rest of the other body color. If you seen this, and also even though I'm saying it's bluish eyes, it becomes with the naked eye, it's extremely difficult to identify. If you're able to take a good picture, it becomes easy. Or else look for anything which is inside the city. The chances that it's yellow-billed babbler than jungle babbler. But jungle babbler is still there in the city region, but it is restricted to some habitats, mostly to the denser regions. Okay, Usmania University is one thing, and also if you go slightly away, you will see jungle babblers. But most of the babblers, what you're going to see, which is the size of a again myna, is yellow-billed babbler. Okay, highly easy to identify by call because it is extinct, even though it looks similar to jungle babbler, can be easily distinguished by call. Okay, we all know many of you can identify male quail, but beginners, they know, they feel that this female is a different species. But female, this is a perfect example of again a sexually dimorphic species where female looks completely different than male. But you look at the eye, I mean, again, in the field, it's very difficult to see the eye color. In the picture, it's easy. It's again the size of a crow, and you usually hear it this bird during especially during spring season, right? At end of summer you get to see calling, and you know, as quail and cuckoos, right? They don't lay their egg, they don't raise their chicks. Actually they keep their eggs in others nest. In this case the quail keeps their eggs in crow's nest. So that's the reason they keep singing during the breeding season. Okay, again, fruit and nectar bird, wherever there are trees where the fruits are available, you see these quails in good numbers. Okay, this again widespread. Many beginners, they feel that it's a hummingbird, but as we just wanted to clarify that India doesn't have any hummingbirds. So this is smaller than sparrow, much smaller than sparrow. And then very busy bird, you need to, it comes in different colors. So you remember that males come in many varieties in this case, but purple sunbird behavior, the beak is very important here. This is a nectar feeding bird. So as I mentioned, right, based on the diet, their bill also varies. The typical bill of a sunbird is always curved on. It allows them to put their beak inside flowers. So this one is a female, and these are all males. Males will come in multiple colors, and very busy bird. Usually you see them in pairs, or sometimes a male will be following the female. Always whenever you see a flowering tree, okay, wherever there is a nectar available, the chance of seeing sunbirds are more. So in your place, in your garden, if you have flowering trees, then you see this sunbird. Okay, and it's slightly difficult to identify female of this bird with another similar looking female. Males are very easy, very easily you can identify this male with the other sunbird, which is another prominent sunbird, which you see purple rum sunbird, another sunbird, same similar looking habitat, everything. Both sometimes you see both of them together, but it's challenging to differentiate females. So it can be easily distinguished if you have a better picture, or through binoculars. Always look for the throat color. What the throat color here? In this case, if you see purple sunbird, female has a yellowish throat, whereas purple rump has grayish or a whitish throat. And the other feature, if you have some the color of the eye, right? In this case, purple rum sunbird is actually reddish in color, whereas purple sunbird eye color is black in color. But again, you need to have a good picture to identify. Even through naked eyes, through binoculars, it's very difficult to see the color of the eye. Always look for throat color because the size, the habitat, everything is same. But the call is very easy to identify between these two. Okay, so if you could able to record the call, wonderful. Use Merlin to record the call, or any other recording apps, you can do that. But if you want to identify by sight, then you just look for the size anyway. Once you look at the size and behavior of the bird, you know it is a sunbird. And if you want to further drill down whether it is purple dam sunbird or purple sunbird, then you have to look into the throat. Okay, now remember whatever birds I'm showing are only related to Hyderabad. Once you go beyond Hyderabad, go further, then you get to narrow down more sunbirds. Okay, there is a Lotan sunbird which you go further away from Hyderabad. So this topic is, as mentioned, right, is only around Hyderabad. We'll introduce only Hyderabad birds, but these two sunbirds are quite common in Hyderabad region. Okay, another very interesting bird. You might have heard this bird, and if you go to any open land space, okay, this bird is seen. You see them in a water body, you see them in a dry any habitat. You see them, it's a size slightly smaller than crow, and very distinct bird, easily identifiable because it has, you can see the red color warts, that's called warts. And we have two types of birds which look the same. Okay, one is this one, red color warts. There is another one which has yellow color warts. So these two, but red wattle lapping is the most common one when compared with yellow wattle lapping. Okay, so again, this is called, did you do it kind of a call, very loud call, very distinct call. People, even at night, it keeps calling. So a very vocal word can be easily identified by call. And also it is also called, did he do it bird? Because whenever it calls, it sounds like that. Okay, it feeds primarily an insectivorous bird, and also it nests on the ground. It's a ground dwelling bird. Always see them on the ground. You will never see this bird sitting on top of a tree, or okay, hardly. Okay, it's always on the ground bird. So you see them on the ground. Uh, any questions, or you understood, right? This is how we are going to follow. But you have to put these things, whatever the 5 questions what we discussed. Okay, the size, the features of the bird, what the behavior of the bird, and where you have seen habitat, and in which season you have seen. Whether it, if you can narrow down all these, if you can able to record it perfectly, you can identify the bird clearly. So any questions if you have, we can answer, and then we can go further. Kishore, shall we enable, or if they have, you can raise a hand, or shall I continue?
You can continue, Sriram.
Okay.
We can do it at the end. That's okay.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is another heard bird, highly vocal bird called, look into this bird, right? It's smaller than sparrow, slightly smaller than sparrow, not much. The size of a slightly sparrow, if it's a 16 centimeters, is 13 centimeters smaller than sparrow, but it has a distinct call. Again, some birds can be easily identified by call. Ashy, prenia, they all comes under prenia. This is a very easy bird to identify because of ash color upper parts. and creamish color bottom parts. Okay, if you can see, and always this bird comes, and sometimes it comes continuously calls during the period, continuously calls. When it calls, sometimes it lifts the tail and everything, called ashyprenia. There are many prenias. Again, this is the easiest prenia which can be identified. Some are very complicated prenias, which you'll see. They look similar. But let's start with the easiest one, which is called ashyprenia, because of the distinct ash color on the upper parts. Now, this dove uh, is like a pigeon-sized bird, slightly smaller than pigeon, but it has, again, if you look into the right, smaller than pigeon, and the distinct feature is the wings. Lots of spots, you will see them on the wings. So this there is one more dove which looks exactly like this, but it doesn't have any spots. So looking at this, you will so know that it's a dove. Then how to narrow it down, whether it has spots on the wings or not, you need to see. If it has spots, then it's called spotted dove. And then there is one more dove which is there, which doesn't have any spots, called laughing dove. Okay, laughing dove also looks similar in the field, but both can also be easily identified by call. Okay, here the name of the dove came because of the features of the bird, because on the wings it has spots, that's the reason it's called spotted dove. Whereas here the name of this bird came of the behavior, in this case the call. So the bird call sounds just like a human laughing, like hoo 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 hoo, that kind of call it is. So if you hear the call, it's very easy to distinguish both the things. Also, looking at that, also it's easy. Laughing down any pinkish bird, right? Sometimes there is one more bird, where another dove called red color dove. So also looks similar to this, but more reddish and everything. That we'll discuss later. Okay. All these are plant and seed birds. Okay, now this bird, usually you hear it maybe in your wherever you are living. If you're slightly away, you hear this bird a lot than seen. It's the size of a crow, slightly longer tail than crow. And I can define this in a simple way, like it's like a crow with brown wings is how you can define it. If you see detail, okay, it has a reddish eyes, called greater caucal. We have only one caucal in our region, called greater caucal. Usually you see them on the ground, or always hidden inside the thick forest, thick habitat, where it is always hiding itself, looking for food on the ground, or they'll be flying from one region to another. But always you hear it than seen. Okay, very lessly you'll see it, but you see them when it flying from one place to another place. Okay, this bird, you hear it everywhere. Very distinct call. Smaller than sparrow, size wise. Okay, whenever you in a garden or any trees, you see this bird continuously calling in that. And other thing, very interesting thing about this is known common tailor bird, as the name says, the bird nests by stitching two leaves together. The nest of a common tailor bird is like it nests it stitches two leaves together with the grass or something and makes the nest. That's the name, common tailor bird. Okay, and very colorful bird, but you'll not get this kind of you'll not get this bird to see in open. Most of the time it spends in the dense forest, and you will be hearing the call but hardly seen. And even if you see, it keeps on moving from one place to another place. That's the reason. Try to always observe the behavior of the bird in the field, what the bird is doing, whether you are seeing it, whether it is actually shy bird, or whether it is extremely busy, or you are not, never seeing it. When it comes to ashyprenia and this bird, ashyprenia is okay to, it comes and sits outside, whereas this common tailor bird always hiding himself in the bushes. Okay, and sometimes you might um, you feel that common tailor bird call and ashyprenia call are similar, but can be easily distinguished. Tailor bird call is slightly in a higher pitch when compared with ashyprenia. Okay, this is a well-known bird, known weaver bird. Okay, there are three weaver birds we see in Telangana. This is the most common bird called Baya weaver. Male and female looks completely different. Female looks exactly like sparrow, whereas the male has a distinct yellow color breeding male. Okay, again I wanted to correct. This is a breeding male where in the breeding season they become these yellowish color birds, where they are known. Males are known for making those intricate nests. Known during monsoon period, right? You see all the males building the nest. Okay, all males will be building the nest, and they attract female by showing their nest building capabilities. So these birds, you always they see the nest together. They are like colony birds. Always see them in large groups nesting together, and they always nest in a place away from predators. Like it could be lake ends or around it, like a palm tree, coconut tree, where it's difficult for the predators to go inside the nest. So especially the snakes, they make sure that because snakes are the ones which feed on these nests, so they make it extremely difficult for the snakes to go inside the nest. So what they do, they usually their nests are like intricate, like you might be seeing, right? Weaver nest. Uh, so they always at the edge of a lake or inside a well, okay, or on the palm tree. Palm trees are you have thorny bushes, right? So it becomes difficult for the snakes to climb that. So they make it very difficult for snakes to go inside, but you always see in good numbers in the breeding season. One way is to observe this, to document. Monsoon is the best time. They become very active. Okay, this is the urban raptor. Raptors are the birds which actually feed on other birds. So shikra is the most common raptor you see in cities. In any parks or sometimes in your neighborhood, wherever there are other small birds, the chances of sighting shikra are more. Here on the left side there is a male, on the right side there is a female. Female looks slightly bigger than male compared to male, and it can be easily distinguished by the color of the eye. Males have reddish eyes, whereas females have yellowish color eyes. It's size of a how do we define again the size of a crow? Size of a crow spends most of the time sitting in a branch, waiting to see what where the prey is, and whenever it sees the prey, whether it's a bird or a lizard or something else, and just dashes to that from a place and catches and goes and sits with them. Okay, that's the typical behavior. Shikras, even some rare birds called crested gosher, their hunting style is almost the same. Sits, waits until they find a prey, and then jumps onto them, catches it, and then comes and eats. So this is the behavior you need to observe in the field. Okay, now this is barn owl. The new name is Asian barn owl. Is also called urban. Usually, you see them in urban habitats where abundant places, wherever there are abundant places, the chance of seeing barn owl are more. If once you go to the city outskirts and also at night, this is a nocturnal bird, completely nocturnal bird. You'll not see them in the daytime, but in the night time, you might have seen when you're going from one place to another place, probably the white color bird flying from very slowly flying without making any noise. That's the barn owl. Okay. So wherever there are rats, this is called farmer friendly bird because it protects farm crops by eating the rats. Mostly the majority of diet for this barn owl is rats. So this bird is a farmer-friendly bird along with some other farmer-friendly birds called Indian roller. But this bird also helps. Difficult to see, even though it is very close to human habitats. There might be a bird in your neighborhood, but it becomes difficult to see. But the widespread, one of the most widespread, it's not one of the most widespread owl in the world. It's seen in all continents except Arctica and Antarctica, colder places. The rest of the places you see this barn owl. Okay. Okay. This is one of the smallest birds, owls, in one of the smallest owls, slightly bigger than a sparrow, smaller than myna. This is how it is. Owls actually are the birds where these are the only birds where it will give you eye contact with humans. Okay, just look like because the eyes are actually front facing, right? So they give you a nice eye contact with the humans. So this is again you always see them in smaller families. Okay, at least you see it is two or three or more, five or six big families can also be there. Spotted owlets. This is even though a nocturnal bird, you can see them in the daytime also. You can see looking at the eyes, right? Here, barn owl completely it's blackish eyes. It means that it only active at night time. Whereas here, the spotted owlet, you look at the color of the eye, it is orangish, yellowish color, right? Yellowish colors are active in the daytime and also at the night time. So primarily feeds on the small insects, frogs, lizards, and everything. And it has a very, if you have Merlin, right? Try to play this call, distinct calls, very easy to identify by call. They as soon as in the mornings or in the evenings, as soon as the light is fading, they become active and starts calling with each other. Good time to see is in the early morning or in the evening. Okay. And whenever you see a large big tree, it could be a old trees which are there will be a spotted owlet. You can easily see big tree like you can see could be palm tree, bigger trees where mango trees also you can see. All wherever there is a big tree where there are holes, the chances of spotting a spotted owlet are more. Or the old coconut trees where there are holes, spotted owlets can be seen. And this is one migratory bird. This is the size of a myna, where you can see easily distinguished by its color called rosy color upper parts and also the black head. So during winters, you see the entire world population comes down to India. Majority of the world population comes down to India. And you might be seeing a lot of videos where these thousands of birds, they make those shapes in the air, right? Those are starlings, and rosy starlings are known to make those aerial displays called murmurations. Murmurations is one way of showing different shapes in the world, fly by flying together. So during winter, you see them in very good numbers. You usually see them in hundreds and sometimes in thousands also. Manjira is one good place. Even in cities outskirts, whenever you go in the evening, they become active. In the morning also, you see them highly sometimes they'll be going with other starlings also. You will see these starlings with other common resident birds. Okay, it could be a Brahmini starling also, you see all flocking together. Okay. Okay, this is another migratory bird, but of course it is a resident also summer, during summer migrant. During summer these birds come to India, to our region also, called pied cuckoo. Any bird, when I'm saying pied cuckoo, a pied is a word describing birds which are in black and white color. So pied cuckoo, pied wagtail, pied kingfisher, all these are black and white birds. Pied starling is another bird where we are talking about black and white birds. In this case, this is a cuckoo. During exactly at the end of summer, these birds migrate from Africa. They come down to our region, and this is known, right? Whenever you see this bird, and bird watchers also look for this bird during summer, end of the summer. If we see this bird, it's an indication that they are bringing rains. It means that they take the help of the monsoon winds. It helps them to navigate easily from Africa to India during that monsoon winds. So as soon as you see this bird, there are chances of rain is going to happen in a week's time. So that's the reason it's also called Chatak bird, or harbinger of monsoon, where we see the whenever you see the arrival of this bird, there are chances that rainy season is going to start. Okay, so it's a summer migrant, but sometimes you see this bird throughout all the months. You can see that, but it is primarily a summer migrant. Remember, pied, like as before I mentioned, quail, right? This bird also doesn't raise the chicks. It lays its eggs in babblers or some other birds, where it's a not going to raise its chicks. Okay, again another insectivorous bird. Okay, gray-bellied cuckoo, another small cuckoo. When compared with this cuckoo, this is also cuckoo. Again, becomes active during the end of all cuckoos. They become active at the end of summer, where they actually take the help, try to again put their legs into other one. This also has a distinct call. Again, another brood parasite bird where it lays in eggs in other wall. It's smaller than this bird. So this bird can lay an eggs in yellow-billed babbler or jungle babbler or some other, whereas this bird puts it in much smaller birds, could be a tailor bird or what. You might be seeing lots of videos where a smaller bird, a parent is feeding the bigger bird. Okay, so this is these are those things, the cuckoos. Okay. Male and female, they look different.
To the audience, I
Yeah.
would like to ask a question. So try to guess why the cuckoos are arriving in the summer, late summer period. If you can guess, please write the message on in the chat. Not public, you can write it or as a question answer or somewhere.
You want to wait or shall I continue? They can ask. They
Yeah,
can.
they can type.
Yeah.
And Sriram, I think you can continue.
Okay. Okay. So till now, right? These are this is whatever birds I showed you. So forget about the name of the bird. Concentrate on the size. Okay. Next is the feature, how the bird is looking. What is the how do you define, how best you can define this bird, in this case the gray bellied cuckoo. Okay. Whether how is the eye color, how is the beak color, everything you can make a note of that. And then when you have seen the bird, okay, what is the behavior of the bird, whether this bird is being chased by other birds or you have seen this bird being chased by other birds. Some other things you need to note the name of behavior of the bird. Okay, these three are very important, and the last two are, as I mentioned, season and everything, and where you have seen are also important. But once you know it, it becomes easy for you to identify the bird. So now these are some of the birds. Now I'll quickly go through the other very frequently seen birds. This is India's smallest bird called flowerpecker, pale-billed flowerpecker to be precise. So much one of the small India's smallest bird, and this is a fruit and nectar bird. It means that you see them in gardens wherever there are small berries available. This bird you'll see them very busy eating a lot of them, the berries, and the call is very distinct again, and it moves continuously from one place to another unless it is feeding where you can sit properly. The size is important. It always looks like a sunbird, can be easily distinguished by call and the size. When a sunbird, when you see a sunbird and a pale bill flowerpeckers are much smaller. Okay, and almost colorless. There is no color in this body. That's the reason you see almost drab color, no colors in this bird. And pale bill because the bill is pale. And in Telangana, you have only one flower pecker, so you don't have to worry about other flower peckers. But if you go down south or up north, you're going to see other flower peckers, which is not for this topic. Okay, we'll concentrate on pale bill flower pecker. Okay, this is another. We saw Indian robin. Okay, sometimes people get confused with Indian robin with pied bush chat. So it can be easily distinguished from Indian robin by looking at, one thing is these pied bush chats are smaller than Indian robins. The other thing you need to look was the vent color, which is this color. You can see white color Indian robin female. Sorry, pied bush chat female will have a white color, whereas Indian robin female will have rufous brown color things. So you need to see all different parts to narrow it down. So pied bush chat female can be filtered from Indian robin female by looking at the vent color. So again, these are sexually dimorphic birds where male is completely black and white in color. Again, pied as we talked it. And also remember that all the bird names are named on the features of the male, not all the features of the female. So in this case, pied bush chat means they are defining the male, not the female. Okay, and you see them most of the time. Sometimes you usually sit them in open places where it gives you nice poses for photographers. Not like common tailor bird where it is always inside. This bird sits stable in outside. Okay, very distinct bird. Munias, many munias, and this is one distinct munia where is a seed-eating bird. It means that you can see this bird with other seed-eating birds together. So many other seed-eating birds like Indian silver bills are there, okay, and also tricolor munias are there. These can be seen together feeding. But remember that munia bill, whatever bill structure you are seeing, this is how all munias have this type of bill. So bill is very important. Looking at the bill also, you can tell what it is going to eat. This bill is meant to actually crack the seeds. That is the reason you have a very thick bill, very short bill, not like sunbird you have seen, where pointed beak, right, curved down, which is for nectar feeding, whereas this munia is a short bill because it is eating seeds a lot. So the bill is meant to break seeds. That's the reason. And easy to distinguish from other munias. because of its rufous upper parts, and see the scales on the breast. This is, if you can define it, I can say it's smaller than sparrow, slightly smaller than sparrow, or the size of a sparrow. And then on the breast, if you can able to say that there are scales, it's easy to identify this bird. Always seen on the ground or busy feeding wherever there is grains and other stuff. You see them in large flocks, and sometimes you see them in other flocks also. All munias will be feeding together. Three, four species can be seen together feeding when there is a chance of grainness and everything. Okay, this is a songster called Oriental Magpie Robin. Male and female again looks completely different. Where male is black and white in color, whereas female is grayish and everything. I think today whoever has come for birdwalk at zoo, you are seeing a female singing on top. This is one bird. Songster because it comes in, it actually imitates other birds, and also you see them in the daytime. They come in open and sings, makes complex calls. A very highly vocal bird. You see them in the parks and everywhere. Also in the forest, also you see these birds singing continuously. It's the size of between smaller than myna, bigger than sparrow. Okay, this is a starling. Uh, we already discussed one migratory starling, rosy starling. This is the resident starling called Brahmini starling, where this bird, right, like other, always you see them in groups, and is as an omnivorous. You feed, they primarily feed on fruits and nectars, and you see them in large flocks, just like rosy starlings. And sometimes you see rosy starlings and Brahmini starlings feeding together or sitting together. Okay, another starling, a Indian pied starling. Um, you see, they usually nest on top of poles wherever you go in near water body, right? You see these birds near human settlements, on the electric poles, on the telephone towers. You see their nests. So very close to human habitats, you see them. And also wherever there's a dump yard, you see these birds sitting on top of dump, feeding on them. Okay. White-browed wagtail. Wagtails, when compared with other birds, okay, there are multiple wagtails, but the behavior of all wagtails, like as the name says, right, it wags its tail up and down. Some birds they wag their tail sideways. We'll discuss about that later. But all wagtails, they wag their tails. As simple as that. Highly vocal birds. Again, you see them in pairs. These birds, you see them in pairs. But there are other wagtails, you see them in large flocks, like yellow wagtail and then citron wagtail. And some birds called forest wagtails, you see them alone also or in small groups. Okay, but these white-browed wagtails, usually you see them in couples. Like before we discussed about ashy prenia, this is called plain prenia. Slightly can be confused with other prenias, but you can distinguish by call. Easy to distinguish by call, and it's mostly spends its time inside. Always undergrowth. It's not like ashy prenia. It is always inside. Whereas ashy prenia can be seen outside. Whereas this plain prenia spends most of the time inside. Only for sometimes it comes out. Okay, and this bird shifts probably if you in the evenings, if you went to your balcony, right, probably you might have seen some small birds in the flight, many of the black color birds flying in your balcony on top, right, in the evening time. Those are actually shifts. They, if you look at, they are smaller than sparrows, and the interesting stuff is the way they fly. Okay, most of the birds they flap their wings, whereas the shift they make this kind of flight movement. So that way you can identify shifts. And completely when you see through naked eye, they are completely black color birds. In sometimes you see a white spot, okay, which is the rump area where it is actually white in color. Whenever you might have seen when you go to your rooftops and everything, or when you go to an cliffs, right, you might see them in good numbers flying together. Asian palm shifts, similar looking one can be easily distinguished without even looking with the way it is shaped, right? These are very small birds, okay, but it can be easily distinguished because the wing shape is like a bow and arrow. Okay, so bow and arrow, yes, if you say small looking bird, extremely fast flying bird, so that is Asian palm shift. Could be in the cities, it is mostly Asian palm shifts. Okay, this is also most frequently seen even in urban areas. Mostly it is nests under the tall buildings where you have, right, these dusky gray martins, black color birds, brownish dark color birds, where you see them nesting, see them in the cliffs also you see a lot. Can be confused sometimes with the little shit, but the size wise both are different, and both can be seen together also. Barn swallow, migratory bird. Again, you see them in hundreds of thousands when they come during migratory season. They are some of those early birds which come to our region. So you start seeing from August itself. You go to any lake side bed, you see them in hundreds and thousands. Okay, migratory one. Size of a sparrow, slightly when you compare with other swallows, is much slightly bigger than, much slightly bigger than. Okay, white-tailed swallow, resident bird, very easy to identify because of distinct two wires which you can see. Can you see it is two wires which are hanging on that, and throat is completely white in color. Mostly when it flight, you see more whitish underparts, so it can be distinguished for other things. Whereas here you can see the throat, you have a rufous brown color throat, whereas the other one it is completely white in color. Okay, I'll quickly go. This is another swallow, red drum swallow. Usually on the rump you see red color, which is invisible now, but you can easily identify by other swallows by looking at the throat. You have streaks on this, but there is one more swallow where it has streaks, but can be identified by size and the tail, whether it has a fork tail or a square tail or what, easy to identify. And again, another babbler common in urban areas, we have seen yellow-billed babblers. When compared with yellow-billed babblers, jungle babblers, sorry, large gray babblers are much bigger. And looking at the face, it has distinct grayish color things. And when you look, you can easily see that it gives you a feeling that it's an angry looking bird. And mostly you spend them on the ground, looking like any other typical babblers. You see them mostly on the ground, always in groups. You see. Okay, this is a slightly rarer bird, but high chances of seeing uh, in the outskirts of city or also inside city. It's called Indian nightjar, nocturnal. By looking at the eye, you can easily say nocturnal becomes very active in the evening times. As soon as the light is faded, you can hear this call. Can be easily identified by call. They become active during evening and also early morning. Okay, where they always see them on the ground. When you're going at night in when it's completely dark, the chance of spotting this in the outskirts are more. They'll be sitting on the ground. Nocturnal birds very difficult to see, but at night the chance of seeing them are more. Exactly the size of a myna, always sits on the ground or on some other perches where they sit, and easy to identify by call. All nightjars are can be easily identified by call. Okay, now what can be used to find now from here, right? If you want to identify birds, Merlin is what we already talked. Okay, but you can also buy field guide, any field guide, right? The famous field guide is Grimmett book. If somebody wants to buy, who are interested in reading this Birds of Indian Subcontinent is the famous book. You can buy that book. I strongly suggest buying the physical book is one way. Other one is they also have Google book. Birds of Indian Subcontinent has a Google book. You can download that book also. And apart from that, any field guide works. But if somebody is interested to read the field guide, or else Merlin itself is enough for the starters, beginners. If somebody wants, right, I strongly suggest to download Merlin app, where we already discussed the series of stuff. If you can able to identify, it will give you an option. Okay, here in this case, we are talking about cowcal, right? This is the size of a crow and what colors you have seen, the features, the size, the features, and what the bird is doing, the behavior. And then there are two more steps, which is like season, where you have seen, and and in which month you have seen. Once you answer those questions, it will narrow down and show you the potential options. Okay, ultimately it is you who has seen it. You need to figure out what bird you have seen. So Merlin is a very good app for beginners, I strongly suggest to download that. Okay, once you are familiar identifying some birds, right? So for Atlas, we are going to use eBird. eBird is like eBird is, I mean, all birders they use eBird because you need to document birds. Now till now, whatever you're seeing, you're identifying birds called Merlin. But as soon as you start identifying, you need to document. So then eBird will help you to document your birds. So eBird also, apart from documentation, even though you are creating a checklist, let's say nothing else, checklist is nothing else but a series of birds you have seen at a specific place at a specific time. What are the birds you have seen? That is called a checklist. And eBird will help you to maintain at a global level. In this case, the internet-based checklist program. So a checklist which you created from Begumpet, right? So that, even though it is a personal record, can help in observing the complete distribution of the species. Okay. Also, eBird will help you to keep off all your records. Let's say you are interested to uh, uh, look into your life list. Life list is nothing else the birds you have seen in your life. eBird will help you to show the life list, and eBird will also help you to understand some of the bird distribution. In this case, there is a distribution of a red-vented wolf where it is seen. Okay, and also you want to learn about birds, you can see. And let's say that you wanted to see what birds are there in a region, you can also do that. So eBird is a wonderful tool to plan your trips. Let's say you are visiting a new place and you are not sure what birds are seen in that place. eBird will help you to plan your trips. So extremely useful tool for all bird watchers. So this is are the two things which we are going to use in our atlas. So eBird and Merlin. As we keep on insisting you to download these two, download. And anyway, we have dedicated sessions for eBird and Merlin in future programs where we talk about how to use Merlin Bird ID app and eBird. We'll have a detailed session, but you can start using it right now. And whatever birds you're seeing, you can you create an account in eBird and start documenting. If you're seeing 2 or 3 species, you can document that, but you can do that part. Okay, any questions till now? Now we can open it and then we'll take it forward. Shall I see the chart? Let me check.
So nothing is open in the chat, Sriram. We answered most of the questions.
Okay.
But now we can keep it open for.
Yeah. Kishore, can you just unmute everybody and let them speak?
Yeah, they can raise their hand and then we can unmute
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Any questions? No questions? It
If
means that you
anybody
don't know
wants
anything.
more information on any of the birds described here, this is the
Ah,
time to ask.
you have any questions on the birds which I showed? We can go back. Or you wanted with the birds which haven't shown, you can ask that question. Or anything you want to ask, you can. Okay. Somebody raised a hand. Okay.
Yeah, you can ask Srijat.
Hello.
Yeah.
Am I okay? So I just like to ask, how common are jungle premiers in around Hyderabad city? I observed jungle premier around KBR Park.
Okay, so it depends on the season. Okay, jungle premiers are rarer when compared with other premiers, definitely. Okay, but if you want to identify jungle premiers, you can. Okay, you can be confused with pictures. Okay, they look exactly similar to plain premiers. Okay. So, but to answer your question, there are chances that you can see them in the city, not an issue at all. But to identify them is slightly tricky. Many people they get confused. Either you have to look into two things. One, in the field, it becomes easy, whoever is there. One is to look at the size, slightly bigger than whatever birds you are seeing, right? Jungle prenia can be easily confused with plain prenia, what I showed you. So, and the call is very distinct. In the field, you have the when compared with other birds, the call is distinct when compared with this one. Observe for size and seasonality. In some seasons, they are one of the most highly vocal birds, jungle prenias. Gopal, you want to add something for this jungle prenia?
So Prinias basically, if they are moving, they move in the night. So in the night when they travel from one place to the other at times, especially during the breeding seasons, that is where we usually see them in off normal areas. KBR Park could be a possible place where they are residing. And then during the breeding season is the time when you actually see them to their highest numbers because they are more vocal and active during that time. Other times also they may be present, but they are seldom active and vocal during that period.
But the easiest way is to record the call, Srijit, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Srijit.
Yes. Thank
Srijit,
you.
you can record the call. Any person can identify jungle prenia call. If you feel that so because jungle prenias will be shown as rare in eBird, okay. So always it will be shown as because they can be easily confused with other birds. That's the reason it is shown as rare. But you can happily record the call, upload the call, and it will be accepted. To answer your question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Few have raised a hand.
Yeah. Vishwa. Vishwa, unmute and you can ask.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
First of all, I think the content that you put together is amazing, and thanks for all the details that you shared. Some doubts have been cleared. There's one thing that I'm curious about. In the overall cycle of life, for each of these birds, they have their own role, and I would like to explore anything like that if it is there online available. What would be a recommended place that I can go and check for that details?
Okay, so are you part of this HBA group, Vishwa?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I shared one document where
Yes.
I gave 3 resources. One is Merlin for base
Right.
beginners. Next is eBird for documentation. Then there is a third resource which I got, Birds of the World.
Right.
Okay, have you got a chance to see that document?
No, the third one I did not, and the
Okay,
document I
so
think you
yeah,
shared
so
with
to
7
answer your
YouTube
question,
links also.
yeah,
Go on.
third one is a starting point. Birds of the World is a very good resource. Once you create a login for eBird, right? The same login can be used for Birds of the World. So Birds of the World is a paid one for all other regions, whereas for India it is a free app, free resource. Okay. So where you can read in detail about a species. This is one tool I strongly suggest. These three are actually shared with you guys in the form of a document. Go through those things. And let's say in this case, you are interested to see the life cycle of Indian paradise flag. It's one example I'm giving you. You can see everything about that bird, read everything. But is it the end? No. Okay. That is one resource which is available for you to go deep into that. And then some books will help you to dig further. But this is fully available for us. So I strongly suggest to see that resource. And any other further
I
things you can have, you can ping us.
I may have misquoted my question. So I mean to say in the cycle of life, not the bird's life cycle. Like human is very much dependent on bees, something that we popularly hear, right? Like that,
Okay.
what that chain of life I'm talking about. So yeah, if you think that's the starting point for me, I'll get started.
Okay, you wanted to know how. Okay, so there is a connections. Always connections are there between multiple stuffs. Okay. Now in this case, let's say I'll give you an example. Maybe I probably it'll answer your question. Let's say bees are there. Okay, bees are dependent on flowers. Flowers are there. Bees are there. Bees are there. You have bee eaters are there. Bee eaters are there. There are birds of prey are there. So if the flowers are not there, there are no bees. If the bees are not there, there are no green bee eaters and there are no bee eaters or something else, there are no birds of prey. Are this the cycle you are talking about?
That is right. Correct.
Yeah. So similarly, there are many other connections. Okay. You can take anything. There is nature is always connected, man. Okay. There are multiple connections between each and every thing. Okay. You can pick up, let's say, one example which was recently, let's say, a cow dung which is there. Okay. You dig if you are interested, right? go around and see what the dung is there. Okay, then you'll see something feeding on the dung. Okay, and then there is something which was feeding on the dung, there is something else feeding on that place. Okay, there is always a connection. Best thing for these kind of things, right? Establish connections. It is we need to have. We can establish by writing, but there are many people who has already addressed this. Probably, uh, Kobita, if she's there, probably she can answer if she's there, because she has actually because she's into trees and everything.
Kobe is
She
there
will
in
also
the
help you.
Kobita
Pardon?
is there in the Kobita
Kobita.
is there in the
Yeah. Kobita, you want to add few points?
allowed to talk.
Mute.
You
Unmute.
can unmute Kobita.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, there are always connections, and I think that's one of the most interesting things. When we're out in the field, whether we are interested in trees or small plants or birds or insects, it's wonderful to see the connections. So,
Yeah.
if I mean, and I think it is, if we are going to be birding, as one of the important things is to note what those species are, what sort of food they eat, and whether those are available in that ecosystem where we are. And you'll see a pattern. You'll see that in the heart of the city, depending on, for example, just saw somebody ask, are there hornbills in the city? And yes, there are. In the heart of the city, in Indira Park, there are so many hornbills. And then you start asking the questions, how come there are so many over there? One is there are large trees which have holes that can accommodate them while they're nesting. And then there are trees in Indira Park which they feed on. I mean, so the fruits, there are so many banyan trees there. So they get the fruit. And then of course there are several other birds. So if they want, they can have, and because it's a pretty good environment, there are lizards, birds, all of that. So they can feed on, they can be omnivores mostly when they're nesting. So they have, enough food. And the interesting thing about hornbills is that they need a certain kind of bark, peeling bark, to line their nests with. They're very finicky about that. So the presence of rain trees over there is suits their nesting habits. They take the bark of the rain tree and they line their nest, and then when the young have pooped on it, or even the female for that matter who's enclosed in that nest, they throw out all the old bark and then they'll reline it with fresh bark. So it's important in that ecosystem to have all of this. So, and it speaks for the health of that area when you see this bird and you say, oh, okay, I think it's a good place.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I think Sriram, you of course have been observing for a long time.
Yeah, Kobita, I need to introduce Kobita. I think many people they don't know. Kobita is an expert when it comes to trees. So when let's say a bird watcher goes with the tree expert, so discussion is always between the interaction. Okay. So I strongly suggest to come for one of the bird walks where Kobita, myself, bird watchers, everybody is there. Then you'll understand better. I think most of the things in the nature, right, when you spend more time analyzing, it gives you a lot of other insights, which sometimes very new for many other people also. I think I see a lot of hands raised.
Yeah, I'll do it one by one.
Yeah, one more. Hope we answered your
Nagesh?
question. Yeah.
Hey, this is Nagesh here. Thanks, Ram. Wonderful information. The question I have is there is not a lot of mention about eagles. So I was just wondering actually if
Yeah. Okay,
that is
nice. Okay.
something
Okay.
we don't
Uh,
spot.
yeah, today's session is all about you saw right the species which are seen in the general looking species, but the eagles will be introduced in subsequent sessions where we talk about woodland species, right? When we talk about woodland species, some eagles will come in the city, in the middle of city. During some seasons you get to see eagles, but most of the things what you see in the city are blackheads which are introduced today, but some eagles will be introduced in subsequent sessions. Okay.
Thank you.
So this
Uh,
remember that this is a series of sessions. Each session will habitat the will try to address one habitat. In this case, we talked about birds which are seen in multiple habitats. Next session is completely dedicated for forests or parks where the birds which are seen in parks will be addressed. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
There's one Xiaomi. I don't know who's that. I don't have a name there.
Okay.
Who's this? Who wants to ask a question?
Praveen here.
Yeah,
Praveen.
Praveen. Go ahead, Praveen.
Yeah, in continuation with the connection between trees and other habitat, yesterday what we had done in the KBR Park, if you look at the KBR Park sometimes back and now the condition is little pretty not very attractive, especially that it's a self multiplying garden, but because of human intervention, many species are. I am also a botanist, so I would like to contribute during the survey some of the relation between the, especially the plants and the bird community for their nesting or their food or for their whatever perching activities. So definitely, yesterday with one of the group, I could able to give some insight on that. So if you see the previous greening program in Hyderabad in and around, Department of Forest also got a limited resources of species, which is not much supportive for the species which were earlier used to have a lot in number. So definitely, I can contribute identifying the trees and connect with the respective species. So that part also we can include in the survey, and this data
Okay.
can be given to the respective department.
Okay, so in the survey, especially though we are talking about, I mean, it's everything about Bird Atlas, but in the comments you can mention, we will when we discuss the survey protocol, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some other things can be discussed on what needs to be included in the survey.
Oh.
But primarily, this is more like a Bird Atlas where we are planning to map, but also we'll collect some more details about the habitat of where we are, what in the cell, whatever is allocated to you. Some details of the cell also needs to be collected. What is the habitat you're seeing, whether it has a big trees or not, some kind of information are also collected, but not mandatory. But birds are mandatory. Yeah.
What I understood from yesterday is end of the survey we are going to share this data
Yes.
with the
Yes.
respective
Yes. Yes.
people
Absolutely.
and make sure that when we plan the urban planning or buildings,
Yeah.
this data will help us. So that's why
Yeah.
I would like to
Yeah.
get.
So in some cells, okay, I'll give an example. I'm thinking that there could be zero birds in some cells. Okay.
Yeah.
Zero cells itself is good data. Okay. Even though we are saying zero, okay,
Mm-hmm.
zero has no value. But if a cell, hopefully we are not finding those cells, but if a cell says that there are zero birds, it actually puts a question for many of
Mm-hmm.
us, also to the department, why there are no birds in that cell. That is also very important data,
Yeah.
which Atlas is going to probably see some
Yeah.
of those.
Another important point I would like to share. I daily pass through this Jawaharlal dump yard. So
Mhm.
the recent rain has accumulated a lot of water and leaching of all this uh, the garbage comes to the, and there are a lot of water birds depending on that water body. So such
Okay.
things that we need to highlight so that because that also may issue that I may also make some issue with the birds, their life or whatever. Right. So such things we can, if we can observe and address in a
Mhm.
better way, it will
Okay.
be much better. Because we are ultimately we are trying to conserve the bird population. Right.
Okay.
Sai Tulsi, you can ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Just a general question on the best time to do bird watching. You know, as somebody who doesn't like to wake up early, I know mornings are a good time, but are evenings, dusk an equally good time?
So it depends on the place where you're visiting, Tulsi. So let's say you're going to a forest, right? Forests are active throughout. They become active only after 9 when it becomes hot, right? So they become active. But when you're visiting a lake, right, or anything, Mornings and evenings both are suggested timings. Okay, evenings are also good times to do bird watching, mornings and evenings. But in the forest, throughout the day is also suggested based on the place which you are visiting.
Yeah, I would like to add a few points. So most of the birds which we see are daytime active and nighttime in the rest. So what happens is that, after a period of starvation or throughout the night, most of the birds are early wakers rather than nocturnal birds in terms of numbers. So the best time for bird watching is the morning time when they actually get up and go feed, drink, etc., etc. And then these birds also become active towards the evening because during the central period of the day, the temperatures are very hot and then it is hostile enough for them to try and reduce their activity during that period. Towards the end of the day, they again gain the activity so that before they go into the night session, they try and feed some more. Although I must say that the activity, when compared in the evening to the morning sessions, are much lesser. So it is always better to do birding
Better.
in the morning because you see the entire activity. I'm sure that there are several people in this group who are not early risers, but bird watching is preferably an early morning activity, and it is definitely going to bring in a lot of changes to the bird watchers who rise up early. And I strongly believe that it is a positive one.
And okay, one more thing is for HBA, right? The protocol says that we are going to do bird watching from morning 6 to 9 and it can extend up to 10. Okay. So the survey when we do, it's between 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'll just become an early bird then.
Yes.
Yes, Srijit. Go ahead.
So one more question. So
Yeah.
seeing as you're a much more experienced birder, I'd like to ask you, how significant was the decline of birds over the past maybe 30, 40 years in the Hyderabad city,
Okay.
along with development?
So I can talk about the 10 years of my bird watching, but Ashish Piti, if he's there, he could have answered the last 50 years how Hyderabad transformed and some of his words. So probably when you attended the first session, you might have seen one slide where he showed vultures in the middle of the city, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure whether you attended first session. Have you attended?
Oh, no, I did not, sir.
Okay, so he started the session by showing vultures in the middle of Anaslipuram dumpyard. So, and you have to see that now they are not there. Okay, and when I started bird watching, I did see a lot of birds in the city itself. I used to think that they're common, but now their eagles are drastically reducing. Wetland birds are drastically reducing. Okay, the habitat specialized birds are reducing. Habitat specialized birds are the birds which are dependent on the habitat. Right? Grassland birds are drastically reducing. Wetland birds are drastically reducing. The thriving birds are the birds which are can survive in multiple areas. Like peafowl population is increasing, minor population is increasing. Oh, compared to the other ones. Okay, the birds which are dependent on multiple habitat, multiple diverse feeding patterns can easily survive, whereas the birds which are dependent on one habitat, wetlands, okay, the data says that the decrease in wetland birds population by is 35% in the last 10 years itself. Okay, and it is going to reduce drastically also, unless because migrate most of the wetland birds, right? During migration, we used to see lots of thousands of lakhs of birds migrate down south. Now their population is reducing for various reasons. Could be multiple reasons. Okay.
Okay.
Eagles have definitely when I started, I used to see a lot of even Indian rollers. Indian roller population is drastically reducing. Okay, that is also multiple reasons. Could be the way we are actually doing farming is one reason. All the insectivorous diet birds are actually getting affected.
Yes, sir. Also, I'd like to share one thing. So I had read this accounting from a alumni of the HBS Begumpet campus, and he noted that there was a small talab or something near the campus which is now gone, where migratory birds like Brahmini ducks, northern pintails, northern shovelers used to come. And I was extremely surprised because I hadn't found a single waterfowl in the campus, only a few, what is that, red wattle lapwings, yellow wattle lapwings. That was the extent of the, what is that, water species that would live around the school.
Okay.
So
So now
Srijit, I would like to add a few points. So regarding the trends of bird species which you are looking for, there is a website called State of Indian Birds, and then they have updated to the 2023 version, where
I've
you
seen that.
can search species-wise, state-wise, whatever locality you want to see the trends of these birds. But overall, if you look at the trends of birds in India, except for the peafowl, almost all are on their decline.
yeah. So Srijit, I am adding one more point. This is how Aminpur used to see few years back. Okay, I'm not sure whether we're going to see it again like this. Aminpur is one of those typical cases where habitat restriction and everything, how it is affecting. Now you are not seeing so many ducks also, where how we used to see a few years back. Now they are not seen. Okay, so any place, any wetland you take, the numbers are drastically reducing. That is what it is. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So I strongly suggest two things for beginners: download Merlin, download eBird, start recording, start reporting. If you have seen one or two birds in your neighborhood, right? Getting used to eBird is very important for this survey. So get used to it. Don't wait till we conduct eBird session. Okay, eBird related, even though it is there, fifth session. Download right now itself. Start asking questions. Okay, you can ping me about how to use. If you wanted to know, ask, or you come for any bird walks. Okay, as we mentioned previously, attend bird walks conducted by Deccan Birders or Hyderabad Birding Paths or anything. Go with them. Whatever we are teaching in theory is not enough unless you see it physically. You need to come physically implement. We talked about 5 Ws of bird identification, but you have to implement that in the field to identify. Because in the field, field experience is extremely important to make this survey successful. Okay, so start documenting birds, download eBird, register your account, and whatever species, one or two species you were able to identify, document, try get used to it. And also I shared the atlas. I showed you my Google My Maps, right? Explore the cells which are near to you, see whether how is that habitat. You can share more information about the cells which are near to you. I think John raised hand.
Hello. Yeah, John, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Pritam. Thank you so much for your session. Um, so I always found it challenging identifying the smaller size birds like the bush chat and the rock chat. The larger size birds are easy to identify because of their features, I suppose.
Okay.
But yeah, I always found it very challenging identifying the smaller ones. How do you get good at that?
Okay, so now I gave you 5 questions, right? Try to answer those 5 questions. First thing, okay, try to answer what is the size of the bird, what is the behavior of the bird, and everything. That is the first thing. If you can identify the first 3 parts, the features of the bird, the behavior of the bird, and the size of the bird, it becomes not easy. Definitely, I'll not say easy. It's always
Hmm.
difficult. And when you attend bird walks with some of the experts, right, the discussion
Right.
with them will help you to identify better. Come for one of the bird walks, it will help you to identify better. But there are many tricky species which even the experts find it difficult. Okay, so warblers, we are not till didn't touch about warblers. Okay, warblers, pipits, some of the complex families which even experts will fail. Even with pictures, it becomes difficult. You need to mix pictures plus calls plus the behavior to identify one bird. Sometimes pictures are also not enough to identify birds, but it's fine. Okay.
So, John, so there is
Thank
no
you.
shortcut to identifying small words anyway. So it is
Mhm.
basically practice and then see them again and again and again,
Experience, yeah.
and then practice
Mhm.
makes you perfect. So the more experience you get, you will be able to identify them.
Even the experienced bird
Oh,
watchers, if they stop bird watching for 1 month or twice, right? They'll
uh-huh,
feel
uh-huh.
okay.
They get rusty.
Thank you.
Yeah, they'll
Thank
yeah.
you.
Sriram, do you have that do's and don'ts which we did for our thing in one of your slides?
Do's and don'ts. I think we covered in first session. Shall I?
Okay, no problem.
Okay. If you want, I can take it out, but yeah. Let me check. You want me to open that?
Yeah, if you can.
Okay, 1 second. So, okay, Srijit, I think you missed the first session, right? Probably if you're there. So this is how, this is given by Ashish Pitti on the first session. The Banjaras road number 10. That is few years back. This is how it is now. Okay. How it is, how it has transformed. This is the Vanaslipuram region where vultures now we can't hardly see a single vulture. Okay. Now these are Vanaslipuram few years back. Okay. Now do's and don'ts. Is it somewhere? Here.
That's okay, Sriram.
Okay.
We will share it with the team later.
Okay, we'll share it. I think we created a do's and don'ts that
Yeah.
we'll share it with you. So people who haven't registered for HBA, okay, just contact one of us. If we are registered for HBA, it is fine. If not, ask because as I mentioned, right, there's a series of sessions happening, and each sessions are related with the previous sessions. So the sessions are scheduled in such a way that at the end of all 8 sessions, if you still have queries, we are hoping that everything will be cleared for you. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I know some of you could be busy at some point of time. So if you miss the session, go back to our YouTube channel and watch the videos. Don't miss the videos. I mean, it's not possible for everybody to attend all the sessions. It's okay, but please don't miss the sessions. Go back and listen to the video.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we are all busy in our own world. So, but that's the reason all these sessions are recorded and we'll put it in our YouTube channel. Again, Hyderabad Bird Atlas. You can search for the channel HYD Bird Atlas. You get all social media accounts are the same thing, HYD Bird Atlas. You can get that. Instagram, somebody wants to follow Instagram, HYD Bird Atlas. Okay, all this. Twitter, if somebody is active, HYD Bird Atlas. So Mia has a question.
Yes, Soumya, you can unmute and talk.
Yeah, hi. So I noticed that there were Telugu names also that were mentioned on each of the
Okay,
slides. So
okay.
I was
Don't use
wondering
that.
but I was wondering whether they are local names or are being defined now, or how is it happening?
Okay, so I'll put my thoughts. Telugu names are not standardized like how English names are there. So don't take whatever I'm showing because Telugu names are not standardized till now. Okay, the process of standardization is in the process again, so which might take an year or two. But the Telugu names, if you move from one district to another district or one state to another state, the bird is called in multiple ways. So whatever I showed, I just give you a glimpse of Telugu names, but they're not standard, Soumya. Okay. But you can explore further. And if you have more details about Telugu names, please happy to share it with us because we are doing a standardization process of Telugu names. Any person, whoever in this group, right? If you know a local dialect of bird names, which is called in your region, please reach out to us because we are doing another project where we are planning to standardize all the Telugu names. But whatever session, what we showed names, Samir, don't think they are actual names. Few are okay, but not everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? If not, we can stop recording and stop the session.
Gopal, do you want any of those questions which we answered in the Q&A to be brought up here for more discussion?
Mm, I'm just looking into the questions. So, Sriram, it is
Yeah.
very difficult to photograph birds. Recording bird sounds in Merlin was easy.
Okay.
How to get clear photographs?
Okay. That's a different session which we'll address. But to get a, okay, I'll give you one example. Okay. To photograph birds, you need to be, you need to give that space to the bird also. It means that the bird shouldn't be scared of you. Your presence, you should be actually, your presence shouldn't threaten the bird. That is the one thing I'm going to suggest. If somebody wants a good picture of any bird, the bird, either it should be comfortable with you or the bird shouldn't notice you. You have to do one of those two things. Some birds are extremely shy birds. It means that you should always be in a posture where you are less threatened to the bird. It means that, let's say you are approaching a wetland bird. It is always suggested to approach a wetland bird by lowering your height. In this case, you need to crawl to approach to take good pictures. So that's one thing I'll say, but this session is not meant for that. But you can always ping me. You know my number. I'll give you more details, how to take good pictures and everything. That's it. So not for this topic. Okay, not on this day. Anything else or else?
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think we can stop the recording then.
Yes.
Yes.